UK on adult ADHD underlines that it is never too late to get diagnosed and to get treatment. That's because researchers found that people diagnosed with ADHD have shorter lifespans. The research is published in the British Journal of Psychiatry, and clinical psychologist Janine Hubbard is joining us now on the line to explain. Hello, Janine. Nice to have you here.
Good afternoon. And we certainly know you and I have spoken lots about ADHD over the years. This puts a new spin on things.
Yeah. So just walk us through some of the key findings from this new study.
The biggest finding is it's showing that adults with ADHD, and this doesn't have to be the prognosis, this doesn't have to be the outcome, but what they have found is a shortened life expectancy in adults with ADHD, shortened by 7 years in men and almost 9 years in women. And I mean, we've kind of known over the years that there are a lot of things that do put individuals with ADHD at increased physical and mental health risk, or potentially impact. But I don't think we've seen it boil down to this is a condition, this is a chronic health condition that can decrease someone's life expectancy by almost a decade. Any other health condition that was out there, we'd have treatment centers and focus of research and comprehensive assessment and treatment, in every city in the country. Yeah. But ADHD continues to be misunderstood and often underdiagnosed or dismissed. So I'm hoping that this study is really going to highlight this is a real public health concern.
Yeah. And why might people with ADHD have a shorter life expectancy?
Some of it has to do directly with some of the symptoms. For example, we know that there's higher levels of impulsivity and risk-taking, so you will often see riskier behaviors, perhaps, driving cars. And we see a lot of accidents that, can come from that. But a lot more of it is more subtle. We've always known that there are higher rates of things like anxiety and depression and suicide, but it's also in that seeking of the dopamine hit, which is what we know people with ADHD, that's what their brains are craving. It's things like over-reliance on junk food or substance use or alcohol or gambling or risky behaviors. All of those are things that, help to kind of satisfy some of the dopamine drive. But then we're seeing that it can lead to, chronic health conditions that come along with not getting a lot of exercise, poor diet. We know that there's sleep is often disrupted. So we're seeing that. Plus, we're seeing a lot of underemployment or unemployment, not reaching potential academically, disrupted relationships, high levels of divorce and separation, so that we're often seeing more financial impact. And we all know, the social determinants of health in terms of some of the financial piece and the education piece. We've long known that the rates of individuals with ADHD, either diagnosed or undiagnosed in the judicial system, is much higher. And we know that that can have an impact on lifespan. And again, I want to stipulate this is not for everybody. We also know that properly diagnosed, properly assessed, properly treated, individuals can thrive and be incredibly successful and do not necessarily have a lot of the kind of doom and gloom that it feels like this study is presenting.
And what an interesting fact right at the top that you mentioned. So a big difference in the life expectancy for males versus females. So I guess we were talking about men, a life expectancy reduction of 6.7 years, and in women 8.6. Like, why the big difference there?
That's something I'd love to explore further because, of course, this is a study looking at adults 18 and above. I'm not sure in terms of what their female population looked like because we know that we are increasingly now diagnosing women and girls in ways that we didn't previously. So, in some cases, kind of like the really hyperactive 6-year-old boys who get picked up really early.
Mhm.
It may be that some of the symptoms were more overt or causing more difficulties. We do see, like I say, substance use and addictions. Maybe it's being picked up that way. I don't have a good answer, but it's something I am very curious
Hmm.
about myself.
Hmm.
But I also know that, like any good study, we've got some correlations, we've got some associations, but we also know that, the next group of 18 to 28-year-olds may look very different in some of their prognosis because of updated understanding, because of updated treatments, hopefully because of earlier diagnosis. There's so many factors at play, but I think it is highlighting that this is not a condition just to be dismissed, not to have you're doing fine. You've got a family and a job. Why do you want to pursue this? What difference is it going to make? This is exactly why we're highlighting this.
Right. And here in Canada, what are the stats on ADHD?
And again, I think this is an underrepresentation. We know that about 5 to 9% of kids are diagnosed with ADHD, but only 3 to 5% of adults. And the ratio of males to females continues to be disproportionate. And we know that that's not accurate with what we're seeing. We used to think that kids outgrew ADHD. That's why a lot of my adults, fellow clinicians who treat adults, didn't have it as part of their training. And what we know is that it continues into adulthood, but the symptoms may present differently. And depending on the obstacles or challenges that an individual has, they may exhibit more or fewer symptoms. So school and sitting in a seat for the school day may have been really, really challenging. But if you get somebody, in a high stimulating, very active, physically active position as an adult, it might not be quite as obvious, but the symptoms are still there.
So when you're looking at this study as somebody who's worked in this area for a number of years, Janine, I mean, what did you think of the findings? Has this brought a new understanding?
Well, I mean, we've always known that there was somewhat of a higher risk. The numbers are, like I say, really startling. And what I'm hoping, I want to give optimism and hope to people who are out there and really encourage seeking out that diagnosis. The decreased stigma has helped a lot. The problem is we don't have the services in the public system. So in order to access a lot of this, there are huge barriers in terms of accessing private systems, even in terms of being able to access medication for people who are on stable doses but have, lost their family physicians. I like to highlight PEI has a groundbreaking. They were the first province in the country to launch a comprehensive adult ADHD clinic. And with this kind of information, this is something that the ministers of health should be looking at and paying attention and saying, my goodness, look at the healthcare dollars that costs us. Look at the impact that has on a public health perspective. Maybe we really do need to be investing in proper comprehensive assessment and treatment resources within the public system, because that's the biggest barrier that I see for people at the moment.
Right. And in terms of timing, what would your argument be to somebody who think, oh, it's too late for me, even if I do have ADHD?
And again, we know that there are really good treatments out there that can make a world of difference. But even if it comes to a self-understanding, some of it's, being giving personal forgiveness for, right, I'm not lazy, I'm not stupid, I'm not, that a lot of these things, um, I either need to figure out workarounds or I already have figured out workarounds, but we're really understanding the emotional impact and the self-criticism. So even if some of it is being able to say to others, look, I have real difficulty, I get sucked into things. So here's what I'm trying to do as strategies, but can you help me out? Can you know that this is something that's difficult for me and maybe give me like a transitional reminder as opposed to just getting annoyed and frustrated with me. Help me on this. And what I am hoping is for people who do have the diagnosis or wondering about it, looking at some of these health risk factors and realizing, oh, right, maybe it's the time blindness that causes me to realize I haven't eaten all day and I grab a bag of chips because it's the quickest thing and it's going to satisfy that lovely dopamine fix. Maybe I make sure that I have food that takes less than a minute to prepare that I can grab when I'm in those moments, but that it's a little bit more nutritionally balanced. Lots of things around sleep, because we know that there's a lot of sleep related issues that come with ADHD. And so being proactive in some of the areas and also kind of going, maybe I am, self-medicating with some of those substances a little more than I'm comfortable with. So it's time to, really put that on the forefront and try to address it to prevent some of these long-term health consequences that we're seeing in this study.
Janine Hubbard, fascinating as always. Great chatting with you. Thank you so much for this.
Oh, thank you, Chrissy. Always a pleasure.
That's Janine Hubbard, a clinical psychologist, and she was speaking with us from right here in St. John's.